Thank you, Madam President. So I think we can open up for questions now. Can you please identify yourself and the media outlet you represent?
My name is Antonio Frank with the Spanish News Agency. I have one question with three parts, if I may. Who took the decision to restrict the press journalists covering the conference? If you consult or debate that with the member states? And second part of the question, is this the first time that something like that happened in the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE? And third, a representative from at least three countries, Austria, Germany, and Ukraine, has said that the real reason is not this logistic security problem you mentioned, but the fear that Russian journalists use the front assembly to make a kind of propaganda show. And when you say it's the real reason for restricting the press of journalists. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I would first like to stress that we are open and transparent. Our meeting is broadcasted live on the OSCE and PA's homepage on internet. We hold this press conference. But let me also say that the meeting room here in Roberto is very limited in space. And this is the foremost reason. We don't want to have the room more crowded than it already is. And that's why. And we are open, we are here, we are meeting with you. And I have also talked with all my colleagues and said, hold as many press conference that you see is needed, because we should be open with the Parliamentary Assembly for the media. We should meet with the media, and we do so.
But is it the first time that such a situation occurred?
Yes, it's the first time, because of our meeting have met a huge interest from media. I have read statements from media in India, in Australia, in Spain, but also South America, and of course in Europe, in North America. So there is a huge interest, and that's why we hold this press conference to meet the media and to send our message. And I'm sure that my colleagues will also hold a press conference meeting with national media. And please look at our homepage where the meeting is visible and sent live. And the Secretary General is the one who has worked very much with the planning of the media situation, so I will give the floor to Secretary General Roberto Montella.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to complement, so to answer your questions, as the President said, the decision was taken from the Secretariat in consultation with the Bureau, with the leadership of the Parliamentary Assembly. The reasons are the ones the President said, because of massive presence of delegations. It is indeed the first time, but we never had a dilemma, because normally we were yearning for media attention. This time, for the first time, we have the media attention we've always been looking forward to. And trust me, it's extremely frustrating to have been wanting this attention of the media and not to be able to accommodate you in the room. And this answers your third question. It is only and exclusively a logistical reason. There is no fear of Russian propaganda being used or misused in our meeting. None of this. It's not a reactive move to any Russian news. It's only and exclusively a logistical problem. And we were really hoping for this media attention in other meetings. Thank you. And may I just add that the Parliamentary Assembly, as the President just said, has always advocated for the maximum transparency of OSCE proceedings. The intergovernmental side of the OSCE, which meets upstairs in the Mayor Zone, has meetings regularly. Also, when the chairman in office addresses it, normally you, the media, are invited for only the address of the chairman in office, but then you are escorted out, and the proceedings happens in closed doors. The Parliamentary Assembly has always advocated in all the documents that you will find on our website maximum transparency. So we are for maximum transparency, and in Vienna, the first time we had this meeting, we were the ones who awarded Politkovskaya the award for journalism. So we are the ones who have actually triggered the birth of the Office of the Freedom of the Media. The Office of the OSCE, Freedom of the Media, that is up there, is an office that has emanated from a resolution of the parliament.
So we are very open, and I look forward also continued dialogue with media, of course.
Sorry, on this specific point, it's the first time since I'm based in Vienna I heard there is a lack of space in Hofburg Palace, but I'm very glad to hear today that there is not enough space. You say yourself there was only 250 delegates who came to Vienna, and I think the room is planned for 350 something, so it's hard to believe the lack of space is a good, proper argument. I mean, at least don't try to make it believe it's the main argument, so maybe you want to try again. And my second question is, what will you do when the Russian delegates will try to speak at the room? What will you let them speak? How will you react yourself as president? And, if they haven't stopped so far, if I'm not wrong, I don't think they haven't tried to take the ground, but yeah, they will probably try in the next hours.
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, about the locality, yes, Moscow is huge, I agree with you. But OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, we are not the ones who own this place. We are relying on other hosts. And the planning for the winter meeting, it's not done the last week. It starts already in 1 year in advance. And the room we always use is the same room as we are in now. We have used this room for 22 years, and all of Moscow is not open to hire for conference, and we have the room that we have, and that's why it's not a lot of spaces, because as I mentioned, OSCE you only have a small part of Hofburg, and OSCE PA, we are just guests here, we are conference guests, there is a contract, we are hiring the space. That was one of your questions. And then it was how to make sure that Russia will not dominate the meeting. I can ensure you that this morning, during the opening session, I was of course leading the meeting, and the meeting went well. I followed the rules. We have a rules of procedure, like all organizations have. Who should have the floor? What is the time for limited time to speak? How to make an intervention? How to call for objections? And the meeting went well so far, and I can tell you that the head of the Slovakian delegation, Mr. Peter Oszuski, delivered remarks from the Ukrainian delegation. He stated why I am not attending the meeting. There were also other delegates who expressed support for Ukraine, like Mr. Steve Cohen, who is a member of the US delegation, and he made clear, very clear, about Russia's illegal war. And Mr. Steve Cohen is also, I have appointed him a special representative on political prisoners. And he mentioned one political prisoner, Mr. Vladimir Kara-Murza. He was arrested. He is Russian original. He was in Russia. He met with CNN, and 2 hours later he was arrested. He is still arrested in Russia. There is a lot of support for him, for his release worldwide. So far, nobody has managed to release him. But I hope that with pressure from parliamentarians all over the world, and also that media can make articles about him, and it would be possible to let him free. Because the only thing he did, it was that he spoke about Kremlin's, Putin's illegal war against Ukraine, and that's an illegal act in Russia.
Can you answer my question? What will you do when Russia will ask the floor?
They have to sign up in line with our rules 1 hour before the meeting starts. And then it's up to me, as chair, who I give the floor to speak. So we don't have in a lot of parliaments speakers list in order. We have a speakers list that's the chair of the president or the chair of the meeting. Of course, I will give the floor to Russians. They are here, they are members. But I know that my colleagues will speak out. And I know that my colleagues want to stress Russia's illegal war against Ukraine. That's why we are here. That's what a lot of my colleagues have told me. They are not here of any other reason for this winter meeting this year than mention Russia's illegal war against Ukraine. Hold Russia accountable for what they are doing.
They didn't ask for floor, so
Okay, let's give your colleagues the
yeah, but it's a follow-up. So.
Not so far. We will see, because we are meeting today and we are meeting tomorrow. But all delegates who request the floor have to sign up on the speakers list 1 hour in advance. And we have rules, and those rules are to be respected. And that's my duty as president, that's the duty of the chairs of the 3 committees.
French presidency. We saw the debate today on YouTube, but we don't have the sound for the crowd. So we don't understand what happened when you said that there is a point of rule. What did you mean? Were the Russians reacting at what you were saying this morning?
Nobody. There were no reactions from the Russian delegation. The Russian delegation and the Belarusian delegation, they are seated at the end of the room. And in respect of the Ukrainian delegation, is their floor in the front, and it's empty. But the sign of Ukraine is there. And on the other side is the US delegation, and then is all the delegation following in alphabetic order. So it was no comments this morning, no question of rules of procedure. But if it would be raised, and when it will be raised, I will of course follow the rules of procedure, and I have my advisor on my side who will also accompany. Because for me, and as all for my colleagues, it's important that we follow the rules we have. We are a rule-based organization, and if we expect others to follow the rules, we should also follow them. But let me stress once again, I, in my capacity as president, just as those who are elected as chair of the 3 committee, they are also sharing the meetings and are the ones who own the speakers list. And what I have told everybody is that I expect to have a calm meeting, that we should follow the rules. I will not tolerate screaming and other offensive activities that disturb the order. But if colleagues walk out, I understand them. I understand them very much. And I'm not sure if I wasn't the president, if I was a member, that I would have liked to see.
Question here.
Yes, the Secretary General have just received reports from the first committee, because the first session, it was in the morning. It's followed now by the meeting of the first committee in the afternoon. It will be meeting of the second committee, that's economy and environment, and the third committee is human rights. And the committee that's meeting, or its meeting now, is the Committee on Political Affairs and Security. It's chaired by Mr. Richard Hudson, who is a member of the US House of Representatives. The second committee is chaired by Mr. Asayeviev from Azerbaijan, and the third committee is chaired by my dear colleague from Georgia, Margareta. So this reflects our assemblies worldwide. But the Secretary General would like to mention a few words about the meeting of the first committee.
Yeah, the first committee is taking place now, is about to finish, and 3 Russians were given the floor in this meeting. 3 Russians spoke in the meeting that is taking place now.
I saw a question here.
Yes, hello, I'm Stephanie Lichtenstein. I'm a freelance journalist, also reporting for Associated Press. Madam President, I wanted to ask you, there's an ongoing effort to suspend or even expel Russia from the Parliamentary Assembly. And I think a resolution is being prepared in this context. What is the prospect of this? How do you foresee this is going to develop, so to say? And Mr. Montella, you just said 3 Russians spoke already.
So I'm told.
Okay. Do we get a chance to know what they said? Is there a chance
It's
for
all
us to
live
hear?
broadcast. Of course, we are here.
Receive the statements?
Yeah, they're already published or they will be published, and it's live streamed. So I think in an hour you will find the full. I mean, we don't make clips for every speaker, but if you go through the debate, but they are speaking now, or the debate is still ongoing.
So as you could see, Madam, there is a lot. So the meeting goes on almost all the time, and there is debates that are very lively, and we follow the procedure we have. When it comes to the sanctions, that's correct. Let me just mention that when we hold, I will give a short brief of history because I think it's important. Our annual session was held in the United Kingdom this summer, and there were a proposal from 3 countries, the supplementary item we call it, by Lithuania, United States, and Ukraine, that we should include in our rules of procedure a paragraph of the suspension mechanism. It was adopted with a majority decision, and it was nobody was against it. Everybody at the meeting supported this decision, and it's in our Birmingham Declaration. After that, did I send the question to our Committee on Rules of Procedure. The Committee on Rules of Procedure is chaired by Vice President Pascal Alisard from France. And in the committee, there was members from several delegations. They discussed and developed a suggestion for a suspension mechanism that could be improved, or was supposed to be improved, on delegations whose country become a very serious war crime against another member country. And it's included as well a mechanism for how to take the decision and how to perform during the suspension and how to report back to the Assembly. There were some political discussions during this process. And when it comes to the meeting, our meeting in Poland, there was a suggestion on the table, a proposal, and when it was debated, it was too clear for me that there is a lot of countries, everybody stand behind, all delegations stand behind Ukraine. It was clear. Everybody who spoke the standing committee is the meeting with all the heads of delegation. They expressed solidarity with Ukraine and support for Ukraine. But what I also expressed was solidarity with OSCE. OSCE's fundament is the same today as it was 1975, when it was the Cold War and OSCE was founded as such, and based on as a platform where the superpowers could be met and have a dialogue and not the war. And we are still with this platform for decision making when it comes in the Parliamentary Assembly. I'm sorry for being a bit technical, but this is to explain where the decision is to be made on consensus -1. And there were 18 delegations who said that they were afraid that making a decision for the suspension mechanism for adapting to the rules of procedure would be like cutting the way that OSCE operates. It might be difficult for OSCE to operate, it might be difficult to use the tools that OSCE have. But they support Ukraine. I didn't at that time put the suggestion from the Committee on Rules of Procedure up for decision because with 18 countries, then it's not consensus -1, not at all. So it's sent back to the Committee on Rules of Procedure. There is a new committee appointed with a broader committee with members from more countries. They will have their first meeting in person here in Vienna tomorrow and discuss and see how they should go further. It's not only this item on the agenda, it's also on the agenda of rules overall to see if it's possible to change them, to develop. But I must say that this is the work of the Committee on Rules of Procedure, and then it will be hopefully I have a suggestion to be sent to the annual session. But once again, decision to change the rules of procedure is consensus -1. It's easy to take a decision at the annual session, a political decision, because it's political decision. It's majority decision. But to change the rules is consensus -1. And this is difficult. But let me say once again, OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, we stay unanimously behind Ukraine. And this is expressed since 2014 with the illegal annexation of Crimea. And we do so now, and we continue. It's very, very clear for me. No delegation, no member of the Assembly who are from countries who support Ukraine have said anything else. And I must underline here, when it was the 24th of February last year, 2022, we held a meeting here in Roberto. And it was the first meeting in person. The head of the Ukrainian delegation arrived, and he told us the war had started. I think during my long political life, this was the worst moment ever. And I could notice that my colleagues, they felt the same. During the meeting, it was delegation by delegation who all expressed the support for Ukraine. There were interventions at that moment from Russia, from Belarus. And didn't get any support at all. And I could see that it's the same mood now. My colleagues are speaking in favor of Ukraine, in favor of the Ukrainian people who are doing everything they can to defend their country. And that is what we as well do.
Thank you very much, Roberto, for the W. You said there are 9 Russians who are present, including 7 parliamentarians. Can you clarify how many applied and if there's a reason for if there's a difference? And can I just ask whether you personally would prefer that they were not present, given that it was a decision by the Austrian authorities, as you explained to us, due to their legal obligations? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. When you ask what I think by myself, my view is first of all that the war shouldn't start. My other view is that the war should have been ended so long ago, and it should be in respect of Ukraine's recognized, international recognized border, also with respect of Ukraine's sovereignty. But now, those countries are members. The country Russia is a member. and they are occupying them. They are having a terrible war with crimes by crimes. And I think they deserve the media to listen when parliamentarians from country by country are telling them that they are supporting Ukraine and Russia will be held accountable. I see this as the most important message from our meeting. Russia should be held accountable. And we are, that's also a very strong message. We are united. The unity is very important. And for me, it was, I must say, in the morning to sit in the plenary, to see all the Ukrainian flags around in the room, some Ukrainian flags on the wall, the yellow and blue flowers, and the ribbons, and listen to my colleagues who expressed solidarity with Ukraine and its people. That was a very, very strong note. And I think this should be the message from our meeting, from OSCE parliamentarian winter meeting. We stand by Ukraine and are advocating for peace with all possibility we have. And then I will give the floor to Secretary General, who, as the Secretariat, are responsible for all our applications and also who are attending. And the Secretary General, Roberto.
24 applied, 9 not. I'm not informed of why they didn't consider this. Why they decided that they got a visa but decided not to show up. 24, because we have a registration system. So 24 have registered, but 9 have showed up, of which 7 MPs and 2 staff, or 6 MPs and 2.
6 or 7 is be precise.
7 MPs and 3 staff. 7 and 2.
7 MPs, 2 staff.
7 MPs and 2 staff.
There's a question in the back.
Peter Fritz, Austrian Television Aware. Madam, what's more in media access, did the OSCE representative on the freedom of the media, Mrs. Ribeiro, intervene with you or the Secretary General, so at least this press conference was made possible? Some professional organizations asked Mrs. Ribeiro, especially for this, we did not get a work out from her side.
As OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, our organization, we are cooperating very well in all aspects with OSCE, and this press conference is a decision called by OSCE Parliamentary Assembly in cooperation with me and the Secretariat. I think this is important to mention because we as parliamentarians and the International Secretariat, we want to be as transparent as possible. We want to have good relations with media. We want the media to have access to our work. This is important. So we took this decision because you can observe the meeting, of course, at the homepage. But just to see, obvious here, there is a lot of questions, and of course we are ready to respond on them. But let me also give the floor to Secretary General, and also to our head of the media relation, Mr. Natteria.
Just to answer the question about the contact from the representative from Freedom of the Media, yes, we did contact our office, but the press conference was organized independently, and we provided a full explanation of the logistical issues that we're experiencing, and I think they will be responding to your inquiry. They told me that they're developing, they're assessing the situation, and so they should be responding shortly to the letter.
And we're dancing around this question, you can see it, but the reality is, by the way, the Office of the Freedom of Media, I said before, is a direct emanation of one of our resolutions, so we are very happy of what the activities Teresa Ribeiro is conducting. We yearning for media attention. We are extremely happy that there is media attention in that room, to have all you in the room. There is no defensive attitude. There is no fear that the Russians would have misused this. If we were in a bigger stadium with the galleries, we would have liked to have all of you and more. So this is the bottom line. But of course, some of you won't believe it, want to make a different story. Of course, it's the free media, but this is the truth. Thank you.
I have to follow up on what you just said. I've been to many conferences of many international organizations, and usually if there's not enough space in the room for journalists, there is a media room, a kind of overflow room with a live stream, and the delegates are able to come and talk freely, and that's the professional way to do it. This is not how it's here. So my question is, why do you not, for example, use this room as a media room? Did you request from the Austrian government or from your Austrian counterparts a room, and were you rejected? Was there a decision by the Austrian government not to give you a room for media?
I will give the floor to head of communication and media.
I would say these discussions went on for many months before we got to this point in the past couple of weeks where the decision was made. We had not only very high interest in the meeting and high participation and new security measures being implemented in the Hofburg, but also a number of side events that were scheduled and a special permanent council meeting taking place tomorrow here in the Hofburg. So basically the rooms that were available that we may have used for a press center, which is an option we looked at, just were not available. And so we discussed many different options, and unfortunately this is just the reality of the situation. This room here was a bit of a different situation. We managed to secure this, sort of at the last minute, and it was a very difficult logistical challenge as well, because this belongs to the Austrian Parliament, and we're renting this for the moment. We have 1 hour here, and we're renting it. So that's the answer to your question.
And I can assure you, because we have had this discussion. I have been involved in the discussion as well, together with Secretary General, together with Head of Media Communication. But let's explain, that's the situation.
We heard there was at least one delegation that wanted to postpone the meeting to March because now it takes place on the anniversary of the war. So did you think about changing the date?
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, this offer was raised last week on Wednesday, 1 week in advance. We started with some meetings already yesterday. It's not possible to change from here to another place in 1 week. Parliamentarians from 52 countries here have ordered tickets. They have arranged back home with their parliaments. It's logistical. It's not possible in respect of the organization of the International Secretariat to just move place in 1 week shortage. We can't do that. It's impossible. It's also a question with delegates from 57, from all the 57 member countries. It's a question about practical things like a visa. It's not only Russia when it comes to visa, it's also other countries who need to have a visa. How to handle this in 1 week? And then to change. Yes, it might be possible, but in our, and this sounds boring, I know, but in our rules of procedure, it says that we should hold the winter meeting during the first 2 months of the year. And if we should go behind this and hold the winter meeting later, it's against the rules. To go against the rules, there is a need to call the standing committee or the bureau and make a decision, and then it's to cancel this meeting. The cost is already paid, there will be new costs. The parliamentarians, all my colleagues, it's not easy to go from the parliamentarian duty to a meeting and be away several days, because there is also duties back home. And if it's not planned in long time in advance, how to be a member of parliament? and arrange back home. I don't see it's practical. First of all, the routes, the first 2 months, but also logistical. And it's maybe not obvious, but I can assure you that the International Secretariat, they started already last year, early, the first month to plan our winter meeting. It's not gone on together with national delegations, it's a lot of preparation. And just to say, switched for 2 weeks. Preparation, it's not possible. I'm sorry.
I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Alexander. I'm just from the Austrian Press Agency. I have one question more. When 52 countries are here, so which countries are not here?
I will give the floor to Secretary General on this point. So, please.
I'll give you some statistics. So we have 242 members of parliament registered from 52 countries, 218 members of parliament present, 6 Russian MPs. 6. I have a list here with 6 Russian MPs and 3 staff. This is what I have here. This is what I will dancing around it. 6. I can list you the names if you like.
Yes, please.
Okay. Peter Tolstoy, Vladimir Javarov.
Slower.
The Russian Federation delegation. Peter Tolstoy, Vladimir Javarov, Vladimir Chizov, Vladislav Rakava, Leonid Slutsky, Grigory Karski, who is now the member, and then there are 3 staffers.
So we,
and then the countries that are not here are normally countries that, because, you know, for example, there is Monaco's not here because they just had elections, there is not Bosnia and Herzegovina because they don't have a delegation in this moment, North Macedonia, they have an internal reshuffle of the government, so they couldn't send a delegation. So it's not countries related to any political decision. So those were not here.
Lithuania is not here, and they have decided to boycott the meeting. Russia delegation is here. That's the only delegation I have heard who is boycotting. And Ukraine is not attending the meeting, but they are in Vienna. I have met with them, and I think a lot of delegations will have met until Friday afternoon.
we have about 10 more minutes left for the room.
Thank you, Mr. Stasi. Us, Montella Press Agency. 2 questions. If you can explain it better, what does it mean to change the rule of procedures, the consensus -1?
Yes.
You mentioned this. Because I understand the consensus is -1. And I don't know if you have this information from the 6 members of the Russian parliament. Are all of them under sanctions? Under European Union sanctions, yes or no? And if not, which one? Who is under sanction? Who is not?
I will start, and then I will give the floor to Secretary General. If we start with sanctions or no sanctions, this is, I would first say, the issue of visa is the question of Austria, and it's because Austria and Vienna is the capital of OSCE. And for international organizations, there is an agreement to give visas to attend meetings. It's just like United Nations, where it's also giving visas from United States to attend the meetings. And as I am informed, do the Russians arrive here for the meeting? And I know that Secretary General have more details on this, but they are not allowed to go to the rest of Europe. They are not allowed to go around and enjoy Vienna or things like that. There are restrictions on this. If there are sanctions or not, I don't know, but they are here with the visa to allow them to attend the meeting, just as it is when it comes to other international organizations and participation. then yes, it might sound like Chinese to start to talk about consensus -1 and so on. But I will try to explain. When we are talking about consensus -1, it's consensus, it's everybody. -1, it means everybody except one. If there is 2 who are against, then it's outside of the rule. It's simply like that, but I would say those who are in favor of these rules, they say that it's secure the organization, it's make it stable, it's don't allow anybody to misuse the organization. Then there is those who says that this is not good to have because it's make the organization too stable, what you are saying, a little bit stubborn, that it's not moving if something happens and there is a need to change the rules. But for me it's important with preparation to change the rules of procedure. I compare this with if it's a country's constitution. It's not changed just like this. You need to prepare the changes, need to have looked on maybe the changes from different view, different perspective. You need to have a debate on the changes, otherwise it's not democratic. And we do the same here. We prepare the suggestion that was adopted by the annual session by all members. And there it's majority, and majority is clear what it is in the decision is when it's more than half of those who attend the meeting who vote in favor. But then it needs to be prepared, and then they need after the preparation send back and for a decision. And this was not possible because then it's consensus -1. And when it comes to a country and the change of constitution, there is also laws or regulations about how to adapt changes of the constitution. It's nothing that's done easy. And I think that it's good to have some kind of regulation how to change the fundament of an organization. Maybe it's too rigid with consensus -1, but it's difficult to change. But that's the fact. And I will give the floor to Secretary General, who I know have much more knowledge in these technical issues. Please.
I don't know how much the members of the media are interested in our internal legalistic, but then I can give you.
Yes.
But first I will answer your question about the Russian Federation members being on the EU sanctions. We don't have that information. I don't have precise information, but I'm sure it's possible to find it online. I don't know. In terms of giving members of the Russian Federation visa to attend this meeting is an Austrian obligation under the headquarters agreement they have with the UN, with the OSCE, just as the US has it with the UN in New York, Switzerland has it with the UN in Geneva, Kenya has it with the UN in Nairobi. So these are obligations of the Russian government. In terms of the change of our own rules of procedure, we follow the same rules that the OSCE, the intergovernmental side has, which is that in order to change a rule or pass a decision, you need the agreement of all members, or maybe if one disagrees, it's still okay to disagree.
Any other questions?
Can I just ask a point of clarification about the consensus -1? Is it that any country can be the -1 or just the affected country? Because I understood the -1 means that the affected country can say no, but not other countries.
No, it's when it comes to the rules, it's the committee of standing committee, it's just the head of delegation, and it doesn't matter which size of the member country, is the individual vote. If there is 2 who are against, it's 1 too much. And then it doesn't matter if it's a very, very small country or if it's one of the largest countries. Everybody's vote is respected.
But can I add something? Because for once we have the attention of the media, so I would like to bring your attention on one thing. Let's not make the story of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly a story of consensus -1, because the history of this assembly is that our biggest strength compared to the OSCE governmental side is that we have a majority. And all our political declarations have been passed by majority. And this has allowed us from forever to be able to say things that never the OSCE can say. The OSCE intergovernmental side, in order to say anything at consensus level, they have all to agree. And this has led the OSCE governmental side since 2002 not to have a ministerial declaration, a political ministerial declaration. Since 2002, the organization is blocked. And for the last 2 years, the organization cannot pass a budget. This assembly, with the majority rule, has passed all its resolutions, has held its meeting. None of our meetings has been blocked because there is no country that has created problems with this assembly. We have passed our resolutions, we have held our activities, elections, we have actually used very strong language when it comes to, I don't want to enter into politics here, we use very strong language against the Russian Federation. So we are able to operate because we have majority rule. So we are not, the consensus -1, it's the rule that only applies to our administrative body, which is where we discuss our budget, where we discuss our internal procedures. And by the way, for your information, also the budget has always been free. So never ever the consensus rule has created problems to this parliamentary assembly. It's the story.
And I would like to conclude here of the Secretary General with OSCE stand behind Ukraine. And we have developed our action plan because it's important to know what you do and how you do it. And we have now progressed for our third document. You have all received it. It's our Ukraine action plan. And there you can see what we have planned to do. There is also in the back history of what we have done so far. And I say this because when you read it, you can see that we are using our mandate as strong as we can in support of Ukraine and its Ukrainian people. They are a member country, they are a European country, they are a country who haven't done anything wrong. They are just Ukrainian, and we are supporting their rights, their territory, their independence and sovereignty, and we will continue to do so because that's the wish of our members. And our action plan, please take a copy, and you are most welcome to get in touch with our media department because I hope you have an interest in our further work as well. I can promise it's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.